Hello, it's Vesper. It's nice to see you. I hope you're having a lovely week, and I hope your Thanksgiving was at least stress-free. It's such an incredibly hard holiday for so many people for so many reasons. So if you're feeling exhausted, I'm wishing you rest and recovery. In this video, I'll be going over the Paralives pre-recorded live stream that aired on November 25th. The purpose of the stream was to showcase live mode gameplay and what players would have experienced if Paralives had released in early access on December 8th. The live mode gameplay is brought to us by Nina, the new community manager for Paralives. In the beginning of the video, Nina is creating the para she'll be using to showcase live mode. His name is Milo Caruso, as seen at the bottom right of the screen. Immediately, I really love how a boarding pass or a ticket is used to display a para's basic information, such as their name, age, gender, and voice. We can see there are 8 life stages: newborn, infant, toddler, child, teenager, young adult, adult, and elder. I personally would love a pre-teenager life stage. Circling back to the boarding pass or ticket, I really love that there are female, male, and non-binary options for gender expression, and I love that players have the option to write preferred pronouns in. Moving on from the boarding pass or ticket, if we look at the top left of the screen, we can see 3 icons. I believe the first leads to where players can edit their para's physical appearance. I believe the second leads to where players can edit their para's wardrobe. And I believe the third leads to where players can edit their para's personality. I do wish we were shown what it looks like to load up Paralives and select our save file. I'm sure this will be showcased later. Moving on, Nina explains how each para is allotted 7 personality points that are meant to be distributed between 4 stats: physique, mind, creativity, and charisma. I really hope these 4 stats translate to what I call meaningful gameplay. All that really means is that the choices players make matter. Players should see a very obvious cause and effect between their choices and gameplay. In The Sims 4, you can create a sim who, for example, has the geek trait, but then you can make them dislike activities that fall under the geek category, like playing video games and programming. And the only consequence to doing this is something like this. I will say, I don't really like how the words physique and mind pair with the words creativity and charisma. I just don't think the former reflect what's trying to be conveyed. Honestly, when I hear the word physique, I think of the state of someone's body, not their agility or their flexibility or their fitness level, but their shape and or size. But as we can see, Milo's body shape doesn't change when points are added or subtracted from the physique stat. So I do believe the stat is meant to reflect a para's base fitness. Regarding the word mind, it honestly just feels a bit vague. I think intellect would have been a better choice. I also just feel like creativity also correlates to one's mind. Obviously, the system doesn't need to change, but it also could change. Whatever the case, it's in no way a deal breaker for me. I'm more interested in how these stats result or don't result in, again, meaningful gameplay. Furthermore, if a player doesn't put any points into one or more of these stats, there will be negative consequences related to that stat, as indicated by this pop-up. So I am led to believe that these stats contribute to meaningful gameplay, at least in some way. Moving on to the vibe, this piece of a para's personality reflects their more consistent default nature. I really love this concept. As a list person, I often make lists of things I'd love to see in video games. In my list of things I'd love to see in my dream life simulation game, I actually have something like this written down, except I referred to it as a character's temperament. However, I do think vibe is really cute and really fits the art style and energy of Paralives. I think this mechanic is really great. A para's vibe can be overjoyed, gloomy, energetic, serious, or jester. I do think jester needs to be replaced because that's a noun, while the rest of the words are adjectives. I think playful or goofy would have been better choices, but I do think in the future they'll solidify this mechanic and there will be plenty more vibes. I do think it's really important for the developers to choose good words here, because if they do pay attention to the nuance or context of the words they use for vibes, it can make the resulting gameplay far more meaningful and unique from vibe to vibe. For example, there's the energetic vibe, and I assume this yields a para who is active, easily motivated, fidgety. You might also say they're a bit rowdy, but a rowdy vibe could yield a para who is active, right? But then have a disruptive quality to them. Paying attention to what words are used and the nuance behind them can definitely result in better, more rounded gameplay and more replayability, because there will be so many options and outcomes. In The Sims 4, there are so many traits that are complementary, synonymous, or even contradictory that can sometimes be selected together, but other times players aren't allowed to. And overall, it's really inconsistent and feels gimmicky. So I just hope Paralives steers away from this sort of thing. Everything I said about the vibe system can be said about the social perk system. Good at being alone, good at making friends, good at taking care of others, good at romantic relationships, good at cooperating. All of these options add yet another facet to a para's personality. I love that essentially a para can be serious, but good at taking care of others, or gloomy but good at cooperating. All of these things add a bit of depth to paras, and these mechanics are great for storytelling. I just, again, really hope these social perks translate to meaningful gameplay. For example, I think an obvious effect of the good at making friends social perk would be that your para can build and maintain friendships with less effort than paras without it. And for example, if a para is good at taking care of others, then anytime they do something for another para or animal that could be considered them taking care of them, the para or animal on the receiving end should have their needs fulfilled more than if a para without that specific social perk did the thing for them. I hope that makes sense. These social perks should each have their own little impact on everything. They shouldn't feel empty or meaningless, but all that is, again, my opinion. Next, we can see paras can have a talent. They can have a talent for music, fitness, food, technology, or art. They can also have a talent for everything or nothing. I think that's really great for storytelling. Under lifestyle, players can choose their para's diet, sleeping habits, and cleaning habits. My expectations remain the same. Again, I hope all of these things translate to meaningful, eventful gameplay. Before moving on to the meat and potatoes of the pre-recorded live mode stream, I'd like to say that Nina allotted 2 personality points to Milo's physique stat, 1 to his mind stat, 2 to his creativity stat, and 2 to his charisma stat. She also gave Milo the overjoyed vibe, the good at making friends social perk, and the music talent. When the music talent was selected, the description mentioned special abilities, so I'll be looking for those. Milo was also given normal sleeping habits, good for him, and neat cleaning habits. Throughout the remainder of the video, I'll be sure to touch on whether I see these things translating to meaningful gameplay or not. The transition from the Paramaker to live mode seems really clean. We can see the UI is a bit bare bones, and that's okay. Apparently, this is the old part of town. I can't wait to see more areas of the town and the world in general. There are 4 needs: hunger, sleep, bathroom, and hygiene. I think 4 is fine as long as players are steered towards socializing with townies and exploring in-game entertainment options. Because without a social need and without an entertainment need, players might not be as driven to explore those parts of the game. I hope players are prompted to mix and mingle or even remain single. Perhaps different personality combinations will result in a para wanting to read a particular book or watch a particular channel or whatever. A para's emotions are displayed as cards. When Nina hovers over the deck, the cards spread out. The first card says happy and there's a 2 on it. Then it switches to 4, and I'm unsure why. The card attributes 2 points to Milo's overjoyed vibe, but one says vibe emotion bonus, while one says extra happy vibe overjoyed, which is confusing to me. And of course, after gaining those random 2 points, there are now 2 points attributed to inside a happiness aura. You can also see the card has an exclamation mark and prompts Nina to pick a reaction. The second card says inspired, and there's a 1 on it. The card attributes the 1 point to Milo moving into town. This card also has an exclamation mark and prompts Nina to pick a reaction. I know this because I watched the entire video. The third card says status effect, happiness aura, vibe overjoyed. This card doesn't have any points or an exclamation mark and doesn't prompt Nina to pick a reaction. This card confused me heavily because the happiness aura is also mentioned in the happy card, and it even attributes 2 points to it. So I'm unsure why it's in both places. This could be a glitch, This could also be the developers being undecided on which place they'd like this information. Anyway, the clean something up want indicates it's tied to Milo's vibe, but I also think it could be tied to his neat cleaning habits. The find a job in the music industry want indicates it's tied to Milo's music talent. It seems like the developers are still working on this system, but I love that so far we are seeing that the vibe and talent features within the Paramaker do in fact translate to some sort of gameplay. It's honestly going to be a ton of fun seeing which vibe, social perk, and talent combinations translate to which wants. This sort of system, if fine-tuned, will leave Paralives feeling fresh. We can see there's a goals tab. This is great for meaningful gameplay as it gives a sense of progression. I do think paras should have different settle home goals depending on choices players make in the Paramaker. I love the option to show completed life goals. The new paper is a really cute addition. I'd love the year to be added to the date. I'm a one save file kind of player. I don't start new save files often. I love a sense of legacy in my games, so seeing how many years I've played in my Paralives save would be really cool. I think the new paper will be the hub for all sorts of in-game things upon release, so that's exciting. I love that players can accept a list of activities to do around town. Between picking wants from emotions and the settle home goals and the list of activities to do that players can pick up from the new paper, there seems to be a lot of things that drive gameplay so far. And of course, we have seen a little of how choices made in the Paramaker impact things. This is a really great start. Nina says some businesses have hiring signs that are interactive. Hiring signs show jobs specific to the businesses they're attached to, which is really nice and immersive. She also shows how paras can also find jobs by using their phone. I love that a para's phone has other uses too. We can see there are options to order things, play video games, and check social media. I love the job posting section and all the employment options. As you can see, there are about 30 ranks per job, and paras can have the same job within different businesses. For example, one para could be a manager at a gym, while another could be a manager at a bookshop. I think this is really good for storytelling and immersion. For example, in The Sims, two Sims could have the same career and reach the top, and for example, both be the CEO of the same company. I understand it's not the biggest deal, but it is immersion breaking, especially when you're playing two families who you don't imagine working at the same company and you don't want them to really know each other. I know how nitpicky that sounds, but with how advanced games are in 2025, this really isn't a big ask. So Paralives doing this is the right move. It looks like a para's stats, not just their skills, impact whether or not they can obtain a particular job. So those stats do matter if players have particular jobs in mind for their parafolk. I really love that players can pick their para's work schedule. It makes sense considering you can choose a para's sleeping habits under the lifestyles category in the Paramaker. I hope eventually night owl paras, for example, will enjoy working the graveyard shift if they already don't. There's a personality tab. It looks like there's an XP system, which gives an RPG feel to the game. This is the sort of thing I'm looking for in Paralives, something that makes me actually want to sit at my computer and play the game, not just spend all my time in the Paramaker or build mode. Paralives so far truly feels like a game I'll sit and play and progress through for hours. These systems seem to have weight to them so far, and they're not even done being worked on. It looks like players can unlock more vibes, more social perks, more talents, more lifestyles, and can probably earn more personality points to put into stats. The transition from live mode to build mode is really clean. I'm impressed with all the options, but the UI definitely needs some work, and I'm sure it'll get some. We can see Milo practicing programming. He gains experience in programming and in technology. And so naturally, I assume programming is under technology, but I also wonder what technology is under. Science maybe? And I also wonder if science is then under mind. There's a learning speed mechanic which is impacted by a para's emotions, but there's also a base learning speed element to all of this, which I think is dependent on a para's stats, but I'm unsure. This isn't really touched upon at all. I also wonder whether the learning speed of 9 or 10 units per hour is considered slow, moderate, or fast. Because remember, Milo's mind stat only had one of those 7 points allotted to it, and in the end, that's one of 3 that can be allotted, at least while creating Parafolk. When we look at the skills tab, Milo has music and art at level 3, and if we remember, only 2 of those 7 points were allotted to his creativity stat. Again, that's 2 of 3 possible points allotted. So it does make sense that he has music and art at level 3. If we look at his science, technology, and repair skills, perhaps they're lumped under mind. And if that's the case, I guess them being low does make sense, because Milo did only get one of those 7 points put into his mind stat. And again, that's 1 of 3 possible. But what confuses me is 2 of those 7 points, again, 2 of 3 possible, were put into his physique stat, and yet his fitness skill is 1. So overall, I don't know how this system works. I have a vague idea, but the idea only works when examining some of his skills. I'd love to know how all the layers come together and how they work. I'd really love for all this to be addressed in the next live stream. I do really love all the specializations regarding skills. For example, I love that there's programming, graphic design. This is great for storytelling and making really specific parafolk. Nina shows us some of the cooking and says that paras will spawn in with different recipes unlocked depending on their skill. On paper, that also keeps things fresh, but again, I don't know what stat the food or cooking skill is tied to. The cooking and eating animations are very bare bones and very repetitive. The game is in development, so this makes sense. Of course, food does spoil if left out. That's good. Nina then shows us what it's like to level up a para's personality. The earned features are called evolutions. We can see there are 2 possible choices for Milo currently. Music makes you feel better. That seems like a really cute evolution. And Happy Tunes, which is unfinished, as you can see by the description, and that's okay. Again, the game is in development. I can easily see this feature keeping the game fresh between households. Milo naturally washes his hands after using the bathroom because he has the neat cleaning habit. He also naturally brushes his teeth in the morning. This is great. We see Milo's neat cleaning habits under the lifestyles category of the Paramaker, translating to gameplay. There are a few different outfit categories. We have all, casual, work, exercise, and pajamas. I love that players can choose what their characters will wear to work. There is something called a together bar. It's some sort of meter that fills up when your para has been around another para for about 25 in-game minutes. Once it's full, players are able to choose a development between parafolk. We can see Milo can introduce himself to another para. Once this bar is full, there are a few options. Some are situational, which is really great. It looks like after a development is chosen, the together bar needs to refill again before more developments appear. I'm not too sure how I feel about that. Some developments have a percentage on them indicating their likelihood of succeeding, and eventually there's a yellow development that players can select to initiate a friendship between parafolk. I will say, I do think friendships develop far too quickly, but not everyone will feel that way. Moving on to the shops, it looks like once you select a shop, it sort of loads in, which is really nice. There are no loading screens. The design of the shop is cute, but a bit weird. It's obviously unfinished. There's also an upgrade system to your para's job. After each workday, paras may earn upgrade points that can be spent on bettering their employment or employment benefits. We can see 3 choices. The first is just moving up in rank plus some money that I guess could be seen as a bonus. The second is doubling your para's salary in exchange for them working 3 more hours plus some money, a bonus. And the third is gaining an inspired emotion after each shift worked per vacation days accrued. So for example, if your para has 3 vacation days accrued, they would get 3 inspired emotion cards. I can see the value in all of these. Moving up in rank is obviously good. I assume the higher the rank, the more pay and benefits and all of that good stuff for your para. Doubling your para salary is also amazing. And those inspired emotions would probably help your para level up some skills quicker. As learning speeds increase, the better a para's mood is. The flower shop is gorgeous. I love the name Bloom. It makes me think of the Winx Club. I love the daily free plant. That's a nice reason to visit Bloom and probably other shops outside of shopping. Nina said that you can buy all the items available in shops through build mode. I will say, I'd really love for there to be a rotation of stock that can only be purchased at shops. It would give players an incentive to visit shops outside of, the occasional free object and deals. But I also love that there are deals too. I love that items aren't the same price every day. Overall, I do think the pre-recorded live stream showcased the bones of a great game. Yes, we saw bugs. Parafolk were clipping into objects and into walls. Some assets were in places they shouldn't be. Parafolk seemed to randomly disappear. Nina was prompted to have Milo ask a child about their job, and more. The game is obviously underbaked. It was only going to release in early access this month anyway. I do think a lot of people need to deconstruct their idea of the term early access. And while the following aren't bugs, the emotion system does seem a little inconsistent, and the skill system doesn't seem fully decided on just yet, but these systems will obviously develop. All that being said, Paralives is in great shape, at least in my opinion. I was mainly looking for how a player's choices in the Paramaker translate to gameplay, and I did find what I was looking for. Stats, I think, impact a para's beginner skills. I also think stats impact their base learning speed, and we saw stats do impact which jobs they can obtain. A para's vibe and talent leads to particular emotions, which lead to particular wants, and completing wants is gameplay. A para's social perk also impacts relationship developments. I even think Milo's cleaning habits correlated to a want, though it wasn't explicitly stated. And his cleaning habits did impact his autonomous actions. The only thing I didn't see translate to gameplay that was chosen in the Paramaker was Milo's sleeping habits. Gameplay, from what I can see, feels meaningful, even in this state. Along with an obvious relationship between the Paramaker and Live mode, players collect XP for their Parafolk through general gameplay, completing wants, which refresh daily, socializing, working, the list goes on. And a para's personality literally upgrades through evolutions. A para's employment also evolves beyond simple promotions. Skills aren't grinded at a consistent rate. How your para feels impacts their learning. There's a lot going on. It seems like everything sort of matters aside from your para's sleeping habits. I can't wait for more developments, and I look forward to more of Nina's streams. Hopefully some are live. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'm a new creator, so if you like this video, a like and or a kind comment goes a long way. If you'd like to see more of my stuff, please remember to subscribe. And if you're still here, oh my goodness, I don't know why, but I was going through it making this video. I think I just had so much to say, but didn't want to overload everybody. I really had to fight my demons to streamline my thoughts, so I'm so sorry that my thoughts about the stream took so long to post, and thank you so much for understanding. Side note, I'm almost at 100 subscribers, and I'm shocked. They really mean it when they say you just sort of wake up one day and you're posting content. I know some people probably think, Vesper, it's just 100 people. But no, not to me. That means 100 people are really willing to listen to my comments and listen to me yap. It means so much. So thank you so much. Truly, it means more than I can honestly convey. So thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.